It's 12:01 on my clock, so with that, we'll get started. Good afternoon. I'm Jeffrey Moss. I'm the founder and CEO of Parker Dewey. Appreciate everyone joining us during this, especially during this difficult time for everyone. Hopefully, this will be a good use of time for everyone, where today we're going to talk about best practices and strategies to bring your internship programs remote. Please, along the way, if you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A box. We'll try to hit those either along the way or at the end. And obviously, the chat box is available if you have comments or questions along the way as well. So for those of you on the call who don't know us, just real quick about Parker Dewey, who we are and what we do. We pioneered the concept of the micro internship about 5 years ago. The goal of this was to really help improve college to career transitions for all college students and for companies, to help companies better identify, assess, and ultimately hire early career professionals. We did that before we had any idea that COVID-19 would hit, or we'd all be in this incredibly difficult situation. And to be very, very clear, when we developed the concept of the micro internship, it was never meant to replace the on-site summer internship. We are big believers in the 10-week on-site experience. We always saw micro internships as a complement. That said, again, this summer, the world is different, and our belief is that canceling internships is obviously a difficult decision for a lot of companies, and we think that well-structured remote internship programs are certainly much, much better than canceling them for students and companies alike, but also there's opportunities to see other benefits, and we'll try to hit those today. So again, from a definitional perspective, very, very quickly, what is a micro internship? These are short-term paid professional assignments. So short-term meaning the average project takes a college student between 10 and 40 hours. They're paid. The company sets the price for each project, tends to equate to about $20 an hour. Average micro internship is $350 or $400. They're professional. So these are not Uber-like projects. This is not drive a car. This is not make copies. These are real assignments similar to those to what you would give to a summer intern or a new hire. We'll talk a little bit about the we should or I shouldn't tasks as we go through. They're applicable across every industry, department, company size. And what's great, and part of the reason this approach works, is they're valued. Individual hiring managers feel like they are getting value from the work being done by the college student. And for the college student, they are providing valuable work, getting experience, getting their foot in the door, demonstrating skills, learning about different companies and industries they may not have otherwise considered. They are also available on demand. So again, with that as a foundation for everyone, let's talk real quickly about COVID. And again, we're going to try to go through this pretty quickly because I think we've all seen the data on this. And in short, again, we don't want to spend too much time on it, especially since it is changing so fast. Here are the key takeaways. We're in a new world. Companies that have never allowed remote workers or work for home are figuring it out, and they're figuring it out real time. We've seen a lot of this in financial services and healthcare in particular. We are also seeing companies canceling their programs. It's still a relatively small percentage, and much of it tends to be in the obvious areas, places where either remote internships just don't work. So think in a laboratory or on the manufacturing floor or in certain parts of healthcare, or where the industry is in complete turmoil. Again, think travel, hospitality, etc. Fortunately, most companies have not and are not planning to cancel their internships altogether, and they're doing everything they can to prevent it. They recognize the potential implications and long-term negative impact on the brand if they cancel the internship. They also realized that hiring managers in a lot of cases were counting on the interns. They had projects specifically put aside for interns to work on this summer, and that work still needs to get done. So companies are really looking at a lot of creative ways of addressing it, whether it's taking their programs remote, shortening it, using the gap time that the students had from shortened internships to work on assignments for not-for-profits or other organizations. The other thing we're seeing a lot, and it was interesting, I just got off another call with a number of universities and recruiters. Companies are already thinking about the fall. I was a little bit surprised by that, given how much disruption we've seen taking place real time, but they're thinking about the fall. They're thinking about career fairs and being on campus, but they're also, again, realizing the reputational risk associated with canceling the program. They also recognize the value and the efforts that they normally would be going through right now and over the summer to engage and nurture candidates, and those things are at risk. We talked a bit about brand, but there's also, again, some other concerns. Over the past few weeks in particular, we've spoken with hundreds, if not thousands, of HR leaders about their top concerns for taking their programs remote for 2020. And we heard really everything falls within two buckets. One, it's the student experience. And we talked about brand. Summer internship experience is the best way to build the brand with the college students, to give them exposure to a company, to various managers, to roles within those organizations. The second big concern they have, and this falls into the next two bars, is managing the process. It's really about getting the hiring managers on board. And again, it's not in here necessarily, but the vast majority of the companies really think that canceling the program, even if they pay or convert the offer to a full-time, is pretty significant. There is a real risk of canceling the program, again, even if you're paying or even if you're just going right to a full-time offer, than not having a perfect experience or a perfect remote experience. Yeah, the students appreciate the money, but more importantly, it is about the experience. It's also worth noting that from our surveys of the students, they know that this is an unusual circumstance. They know it may not be perfect, but they'd really rather still have something that's less than perfect than nothing at all. And again, with that, we sort of go into this thinking about how do we make sure we're providing the best opportunity and not letting the perfect get in the way of the good. So we've identified some best practices that we'll talk through. And as I said, we never planned on having this conversation. We believe 10 weeks on site is the absolute best experience. But to my earlier comment, we don't want to let the perfect get in the way of the good, especially this year. And we believe that having a remote program is better than having none. So having facilitated thousands of these remote professional experiences between busy professionals and college students, we'll share 5 very specific best practices that you can all implement, that you can implement with your programs as you're taking them remote. With that, let's get to the first. So the first and probably most important is what we call unbundling or unpacking the internship. It's really about taking a job specification or description and really thinking about it in a project-based approach and using that project-based approach to assign the work. Now, we've seen this over and over, and again, we can go through an example here in a minute, but one of the benefits of this, whether a program is remote or on-site, is it really ensures that the manager and the intern are on the same page. Especially important this summer to confirm that both sides know what's expected, since they're not in person checking in along the way. So for example, over the summer, a marketing department may have expected to have an intern help with launching a new product. That was going to be the assignment for the summer. Well, that may have 4 very discrete projects that we were able to identify from looking at that job description or that project outline. So again, the same way a job description has these specific responsibilities, they can be structured into specific projects. The first project is competitive research. That might take a week, and it includes very specific deliverables. The second project is blog content. How do we announce this new initiative to the public? Then it's a social media calendar. Then it's evaluating the performance. Again, these are just 4 very real concrete examples of how a summer-long internship experience can be broken into these discrete projects. What's great is, from a student perspective, it allows the student to understand what's needed. Where as a college student, I may not understand all of the components of launching a new product, but can I understand what competitive research means? Yeah, I can. Or developing a piece of content. Yeah, I can get that. I can go do it on my own, even if I'm not in the office sitting next to whoever my manager is. What's also great, and we've heard this from the student, is it allows the students and the interns to see a product of his or her work. when they are done with the social media calendar, they can actually see those posts on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever source was being used. It gives them that feel-good aspect of I just completed something. What's also great is it allows the hiring manager to see the traction as opposed to having uncertainty about what's being done. They can see that the student has completed the first project and give feedback along the way. And by the way, this is nothing new. This is really all learned and comes from the best practices of project management. But unfortunately, all too often, internship programs become, as we've heard from some managers, either babysitting or minions. I feel like I'm babysitting an intern and having to keep him or her busy over the 10 weeks, or they're my minion and I'm going to have them make copies or fetch lunch. Like, that's not what an internship should be. And again, these practices are ones that we've seen really come out of the companies that have had tremendous internship programs forever, and they're simply being adapted to the virtual world. And I guess that brings us to the second suggestion, is getting managers buy-in. Now, some managers may be pushing back on remote interns. We're hearing a lot of that from companies where HR wants to take the program remote and they're just not sure if they can, or they're getting pushback about, I don't want to manage someone. But one of the things we're seeing is those same managers who may be pushing back are actually posting micro internships already on their own. They're already posting these projects. And even for those, whether they are or they're not, we have some suggestions on how to get that buy-in. In particular, what we found is it's all about positioning. By focusing on the discrete projects that they have on their plate, it'll help them get immediately supportive. So if you're going to one of the managers and you're saying, we're going to move our 10-week internship program remote, are you okay? They may not quite know. It sounds like it's going to create more work to them. So one of the strategies we have is to go to your manager and ask them for their we shoulds and their I shouldn'ts. There are projects that they have on their plate that, hey, we should really go create a new blog post. We should really go cleanse our CRM system. We should really go evaluate our competitors. But we don't have enough time in the day. Or the I shouldn'ts. I shouldn't be the one doing a first draft of this market research or going and finding the total addressable market size or of a given industry. Or I shouldn't be the one reviewing these job descriptions to go see how they compare to other companies. By focusing on the we shoulds and the I shouldn'ts and framing them and structuring them in that way, what's great is we found these individual hiring managers see the immediate value. All of a sudden, it's less about, again, the babysitting or, oh, it's going to create more work. Now it's, wait, these are real projects that my intern can help me with over the summer and doesn't need the hand-holding. And again, even by structuring it, it's a great way of getting out there. What's great, as I alluded to, is these are just, again, some examples in some departments. We've, from 5 years of experience, have done tens of thousands of these projects. We've pretty much seen probably about everything. So if there's certain departments, certain roles, certain industries you have questions about, again, we're happy to help. Much of our project library is online. You can access it. But again, we're happy to share everything we've learned. If you have questions about either unbundling your job description or getting the managers to understand what some of those projects are, or helping them understand it. So the next question is, again, now that we have these projects and we know what they are, how do we assign them? One of the suggestions we have is to create a project library and portal. We found that having a library of structured projects for the managers makes it much, much easier. So it makes it easier for the managers to structure the ideas they may have. It also makes it easier for them to identify needs or ideas they haven't thought about. So this is an example of something we did with one organization. We obviously cleansed the name, but they had a number of specific projects tied towards different departments. And what we've done is pre-structure that. We provided an easy way for a manager to say, oh yeah, like I need lead generation, or I need market research or data cleansing. Again, create a portal within your organization where they can do that. What's also great for those managers that may not have interns, they may also have some of these needs. Having this kind of project portal and library makes it possible for some of those managers to still get the help they want and to still provide the intern with a great experience. And we'll touch on more on that in a second, but it's just, again, really something easy to think about. Now, what's great is with some form of a centralized portal, the manager can post these projects for the interns as they come up. And on the other side, what's great is the interns can see the opportunities that are available. They can see the description of what the project is. They can see when it starts and when it's due, and figure out, do I have time within my schedule to work on these projects? Again, I might be spending some percentage of my time. We talk about the 80-20 rule. I might be spending 80% of my time as a marketing intern working with a specific manager or team, but I have some more time, that time that normally would be spent, again, having lunch or going for coffee or going to a team building exercise that may or may not be taking place remote. Can I use that 20% of my time to work on a project with a different department or a different team or in an area that's sort of intriguing to me? What we're seeing is some companies are using this approach actually for all of their interns, but again, we think this 80-20 rule is a better approach. We think it really still allows that intern to have that central point of contact, that central manager, but to use that balance of the time to work on other experiences. And what's interesting about this is it's, again, nothing new. We're trying to recreate the experience that would take place in the office. The experience of meeting someone over lunch and me saying, hey, Jeff, like I have this interesting project I'm working on, going to an interesting meeting, or I need to do this quick analysis. Jeff, the intern, do you have some time to help me on this? Or bumping into someone in the hallway. Or as the intern, being able to go to a manager and say, hey, that's pretty interesting. Like, can I help you out? I'd really love to get exposure to that part of the business. And what that does is it creates this more authentic experience for the intern and for the company. Again, for the marketing intern in my example, it gives them other exposure to other parts of the business. So in this example, the marketing intern is working with one team on 4 specific marketing projects, similar to what we described before: competitive research, blog articles, social media, and campaign performance analysis. They have those 4 projects taking, again, 60, 70, 80% of their time. In that gap period, they may decide to work on a sales project. They see an interesting sales project that they weren't necessarily thinking of, but it seemed intriguing. What was great is it provides them with the opportunity to engage with other managers beyond just the team that they're working with. But what it also does is it lets them see how their work fits into the other part of the business. So even though I'm a marketing manager working on or a marketing intern working on a very specific new product launch, now I can see how sales may integrate with that. And it gives me other exposure. It creates a better experience for me as the intern, which supports the brand, supports conversion, supports all of these goals that we have as recruiting leaders. But it does something else. It provides you as an HR leader opportunity to get additional feedback and insight on the intern, him or herself, and give you insight on the career readiness and the skill set. So while the intern in his or her marketing role is demonstrating things around data analysis or problem solving or communication, you're getting all of these insights from these different managers on the marketing team, but you're also getting insights around performance from someone else in a different team. So when the student works on this sales project, you're getting data on adaptability. Can the student adapt to a different circumstance, or decision making, or grit? All of these other skills that we all know are so important, but they're so hard to assess. And you're getting these insights from a different group of managers, eliminating the risk of the groupthink that sometimes takes place in the summer internship program. Even the process itself gives you insights. So does the student throughout the summer not apply to any other projects? They just do the bare minimum. Or are they active in your portal, applying to a number of other projects? Are they getting out of their comfort zone? Are they demonstrating grit or intellectual curiosity? Those things are really, really hard for an HR leader to assess. This provides a really effective way of doing just that. The other thing it does is it creates opportunities for real mentoring. Because the students are very, very explicitly interacting with a number of different managers, they have the opportunity to really connect with a broader set of individuals. Because again, we've all had students who are assigned a specific mentor or a specific manager where the fit may not be there. This lets the student get to know other managers, other potential mentors, either within the team or in other departments. What it also does is it allows you to tap the early career professionals at your companies to help. Again, the mentoring doesn't need to be about talking about the basketball team from the school or having lunch, but it allows the student to mentor or build a relationship with, again, other early career professionals in other departments. It may be that they're working on a project for one of those individuals, but it may be asking for help. So again, I, Jeff, as the marketing intern working on a sales project, I may realize that a student or a graduate of my school who graduated 2, 3, 4 years ago is in the sales department. It's a great opportunity for me to reach out to that individual to get guidance or support. Again, that's a great way to build this authentic mentoring relationship between the student and the company, leading to better outcomes. And I guess the last thing is really about measuring the insights and the impact. As I said, you can gain some real insights from the managers on the intern's performance. It's not just those hard skills or the ones tied specifically to a specific department or task, but it's also about those core skills. And some people call them soft skills, but we prefer the terms core skills: the grit, the problem solving, the communication, the adaptability, the intellectual curiosity. Those are things that are really, really important. And this provides, again, those great insights. The other thing that's important is thinking about how it impacts your undergraduate recruiting program overall. So when this type of remote internship program is complete, did you see a difference in the conversion rates? Was there higher conversion because the students had this breadth of experience or were thinking in terms of projects? Were your managers happier? Were you getting less complaints? Were you finding more engagement? How did it impact your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Were you seeing better, again, conversion or results from that? There's all of these best practices and lessons that you can take from this program that don't necessarily need to end at the summer. And we actually have a bonus item. And this is one I wasn't really planning on talking about, but again, came up today. Don't wait. There are millions and millions of highly motivated college students right now who are looking for things to do. These students have been displaced. They were expecting to be spending, taking classes at home, and were expecting to be spending their time, again, in intramural activities or clubs or other events on campus. That time has been freed up, and they would really, really value the opportunity to work with your organization, whether they are starting their internship in June as expected, or whether they've been displaced or hadn't been able to complete the recruiting process. You and your colleagues have tasks that need to get done right now. It might be identifying remote content for early career professionals as you think about your summer internship program. It might be blog posts or social media content. It might be supporting lead generation or market analyses, or you name it. There are millions of college students who would love to help. They would kill for the opportunity. And these are projects that are important to you or your managers right now. You don't necessarily need to wait until June. What's also great is it's an effective way to drive the branding. It demonstrates your support. We're seeing some really interesting initiatives coming out of the colleges and universities around this. Can your company right now show how you're stepping up to support students impacted by COVID? While you might not be able to offer them 10-week summer internships because your program is full, can you give them opportunities to get real meaningful experiences with your companies right now, and do so in a way that the hiring managers are seeing the value? And it's also a great way to build your pipeline for the future, getting to know students who, again, might not be your interns this summer, but could be full-time hires next year or the following year. And the last thing, for organizations that are still going through the process of how do we get our managers on board, this is a great way to do just that. It lets your managers start to get that experience working remotely in project-based work before the summer begins. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. Michelle, I don't know if you want to help facilitate here. Any questions from the audience? If you could please, I saw a couple of people have raised their hand. I don't know how to use that functionality because I'm not so bright, But if you could ask your question in the Q&A box or in the chat, we will get to that that way. Here we go. Sorry about that. Many of your projects are for students who are studying business or marketing. Do you have examples of remote projects for engineering and lab science students? Again, sorry for the delay there. First of all, we would find that most of our projects are actually major agnostic. I'm so happy you asked that question. They're major agnostic, meaning that if you look at some of these projects that we went through, you can do a content creation or blog post, whether you're a marketing major or poli-sci or sciences major or anything. It's research, it's writing, it's communication effectively. One of the things, to your specific part of your question about engineering and lab science, one of the things we found is, again, to be very, very direct, we haven't found a great answer for those summer internships that would be taking place in the laboratory or be taking place on the manufacturing floor. The reality is it's difficult. And we can't recreate that. What we are seeing, though, is a lot of companies with those types of, call it sciences-driven projects, what we're seeing them do is do projects that touch it. So for instance, if you're a pharmaceutical company, you obviously can't have a student, again, in a laboratory working on that, but can you have a student helping with documentation for patent filing or reviewing documentation for comparable drugs? We're seeing a lot of those types of ancillary projects. And again, happy to work offline and share some of the best practices. We're working very, very closely with a number of companies, again, in those type of more science-heavy fields. Where are the companies usually based? All over the country. What's great about the remote work is it changes the encatchment area, that the student who might live in St. Louis but really has a desire to go work on one of the coasts has an opportunity to work on these micro internships remotely for those companies on the coast and get to experience what it's like before packing up and moving for a full-time role. The next question was, do we have any suggestions for professional development or overall programming? We do. We're working very, very closely with a number of companies offline on that type of professional development. Again, we have, I'll flip to the next slide, we have some best practices that we've made available, but we're working very, very closely. I think one of the things we keep on hearing, I said it before, is don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. There's ways to do programming that, again, may not be as optimal, but it actually could also open up some new opportunities. So one of the things we're doing with some of the companies is we're hosting virtual office hours, where we're inviting faculty member from various academic institutions to, again, host office hours for the interns. So for instance, if you're a marketing intern with a given company, we're going to host office hours for those marketing interns with, again, one of the marketing faculty members from a certain school. We're also doing it very, very broadly across our population and across the students. So we have some best practices there. I'd also suggest one of my friends, Robert Schindel over at Intern Bridge, has done a ton working with companies on developing some of this content. He's been doing or helping companies work with internships or create internship programs for probably 20 years. So he probably also has some great ideas, but again, happy to help. Next question, thoughts on how to manage interns working in different time zones than their managers. What we found is this project-based approach is probably the most effective way of doing it. Because again, using an example of, let's say, a lead generation project. I'm a sales professional. I want someone to help me generate leads for 50 companies in a given area. The student can go do that on his or her own and submit it to the project manager or the manager when it's done. The manager can give that feedback or course correct and doesn't necessarily need to be in the same time zone. In fact, over the past 5 years, I don't have an exact statistic, but I would bet a strong majority of the interns and the professionals who have posted micro internships have not been in the same time zone. And in fact, that's one of the benefits of the micro internship model overall, is that students can complete these projects remotely over the weekend, at night, during non-office hours. So again, we're able to hit some of those things as well. And again, happy to work offline. Onboarding of new interns in a remote environment. Yeah, this is something we spend a lot of time working with companies on. Happy to share some of the best practices we have offline. They may even be in this additional resources section. I apologize. I'm not sure if all of it is in there. But a lot of what we do is the same kind of onboarding we do with micro interns. We help them understand that a 95% correct is not an A in a professional setting. We help them think about professional communication. But one of the things we would suggest that, again, is materially different in a remote environment versus an on-site is this, call it project-based approach, helping the interns understand that they control it. And what I mean by that is, in a remote environment, people aren't going to know if you're in the office or not, or if you took a 2-hour lunch versus a 1-hour lunch, or whatever it is. Again, silly example. So you as the intern need to take responsibility for your project, that you have been assigned this project. It is due at this point. You need to have it done at that point. So that's one of the things that, again, the project-based approach makes it much, much easier to do it. The other thing we're doing is, again, driving that intellectual curiosity, especially in this project-based approach, helping the student understand that, again, they can control it. If they want to do the bare minimum and just work on the 4 marketing projects that were assigned, they can, but it's not going to be the best experience for them, and it's not going to really help them put their best foot forward for the company. Large manufacturing companies rely heavily on co-ops. Again, on the factory floor, shop floor, it's really hard. I wish I had a perfect answer. The reality is we just don't. We don't. There's places, and we've always been, again, very, very direct about where micro internships or remote work doesn't work. That's a great example. Again, if you need someone to be on a factory floor, in a laboratory, you can't replicate that in a remote environment, or at least we haven't found a way to. One of the things we have found, though, is industries where they've required on-site for more quote-unquote artificial reasons are open to it. Again, financial services being a prime example. Question, does the student work synchronized with the company's timetable? If you mean timetable about due dates, yes, 100%. So one of the great things about the micro internship approach is the student knows when the project is expected to start and when it's expected to be done. And there's no confusion, it is crystal clear. So if you mean timetable by why things are due or when things are due, yes, 100%. If you mean timetable by what part of the day is required, that really depends. As I said, one of the nice things about letting the students work on these individual projects is, again, they have a little bit more flexibility, which is much more aligned to the remote work environment. However, again, there may be meetings that are part of those projects, or in-person or virtual in-person Zoom calls. Again, the student needs to be on those, and again, the synchronization of that is important. Applications, apps, or softwares to get interns engaged with the business and to foster relationships. This is something we've always stayed very, very much out of, because one of the things we took the approach of with the micro internship model was we don't want to get in the way of the company. If the company is a SharePoint or Microsoft Teams company, great. We don't want to give the manager something new they have to use, because again, that creates friction. Or if the company uses Slack, again, we don't want to force something new. Our suggestion is that as a company, you should be using the tools you already have in place. If you're already a Slack organization, get the interns on Slack. And by the way, one of the other things we strongly suggest and have seen from best practices is, whether it's within Slack or Teams or any of the other collaboration environments, create intern groups that align to your ERGs. So if you have ERGs for specific populations, invite the interns, bring them in. It's a great way to, again, make sure the culture is aligned. Other than posting projects for the interns, what else have people been doing to enhance a virtual internship? We're seeing a lot of different things. I think companies are figuring it out. Again, they're figuring out ways to take their programming online. As I said, we're working with a number of companies on virtual office hours. We're working with a number of companies on virtual speakers. We're working with a number of companies, for instance, on bringing new platforms in. So we work with an organization, for instance, called Wiser. Wiser is used primarily as an alumni management platform and engagement platform on college campuses. One of the things we're doing with a number of organizations is helping them repurpose that for their internship environment, helping those students collaborate with one another and engage with managers. And again, to the next question about company culture, that's a great way of doing it as well. But what we found is it can't be forced. And I keep on going back to that. It can't be forced. It has to be authentic. When you're assigning a specific student, a specific mentor, it may or may not work. It's very, very direct. It may look great on paper. You may, it may seem like it's the perfect fit, but for whatever reason, the student and the mentor just don't hit it off. That's sort of problematic. It's not problematic. It's problematic because it's a lost opportunity. One of the things we're finding is, again, through these projects, the students can find mentors and build this real engagement with individuals in the company and vice versa. We got the next question. Interns going to need additional guidance training, especially in Excel. Wasn't worried about it when I was going to be sitting right there. Do you have any resources? Yeah, we do. A couple of things. First of all, we've developed a series of micro lessons and best practices tied to some of the most popular projects. We make that available. Secondly, one of the things we do when onboarding all of the students in micro internships is we suggest to them that they engage faculty members, professors, alumni, and others to help along the way. So if I'm a micro intern and I'm working on a project for an investment bank, one of the things we suggest they do is reach out to an alum from their school who might be in investment banking. And when you're trying to figure out the cost of capital, ask that alumni, ask that individual for feedback or insights, because what we'll find is those alums are happy to help. What I would say is, in your very, very specific circumstance, I think those opportunities are still there. I think nudging the student to, again, engage alum and faculty members. I would also suggest that there's a number of great online resources, especially about best practices for Excel, that you can nudge the student or intern to do beforehand. So again, please reach out to them and make that suggestion. I wish I had a better or perfect answer, but that's one of the best things. And again, as we've seen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd love to chime in and just say another thing that has worked for me
Please.
In managing, just early talent remotely is actually embracing tools like this, like Zoom, Google Hangouts, and having that same sort of sitting next to mentality. Being able to open up the screen, do the screen share, walk someone through a process, or let them drive as you sort of sit back and direct them where to click and what you're looking for. That can be recreated online. It's not perfect, but it is something that where you can still get that same sort of sitting next to one another experience and learning from an expert.
Yeah, Michelle, I'm so happy you added that, because again, Michelle has worked with, I don't know, probably a few hundred micro interns herself, leading our marketing efforts for Parker Dewey, and has had those experiences. Again, I've seen her working with the students and giving feedback. And what's great, and again, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, is it becomes a rewarding experience for the student, but I think also for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always interesting sort of learning the questions that someone has, especially when you've personally been doing a kind of professional task or something for so long, and just it's always interesting.
And one of the neat things about this virtual environment is it's going to sound a bit counterintuitive, but it adds a touch of friction, which may not necessarily be a bad thing. And what I mean by that, taking Michelle's example, if I'm a summer intern working on an Excel project for you and I get stuck, if you're right next to me, if you're in the office next door, I can just walk over and again say, hey, Michelle, can you help me with this? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but think about how much better it is if I say, wait, like I got stuck. Before I go pick up the phone or ask Michelle if she can hop on the Zoom call, let me go see if I can figure it out myself. think about the benefits of that. Think about what that goes and drives and demonstrates both in the intern and for the company. And again, all that said, I think over the past month, we've all gotten way too familiar with tools like Zoom and Slack and all of these remote engagement tools. We can leverage them in the same way these students are prepared. All of their classes have been shifted online. They are ready for that type of engagement. The next question was recommendations to keep the interns connected and not miss out on the social and cultural aspects. Again, wish I had a perfect answer to it. You can't perfectly recreate the happy hour. You can't perfectly recreate the experience of having all the interns together doing team building exercises. We're seeing a variety of different things, and a lot of them really depend on the company culture. So for instance, if your company is very much into happy hours and it's a go team, go kumbaya type approach, having a virtual happy hour or a virtual game night using Zoom or one of the other technologies is great. But do you know what? Don't force it. If your company is a little more sort of buttoned up in ties and don't really do as many of those things, again, it's not necessarily bad or good. Hosting a virtual happy hour may feel artificial. So are there other ways? My suggestion is to think about those things you normally would do and what align to your culture. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect. Don't worry if it's not optimal. It's better than nothing. But again, also don't force it. I wish, again, I had a better answer. A lot of the companies that have made the decision to officially cancel their take their summer internship program remote, what they are thinking about doing is finding opportunities, again, when the situation normalizes, to pull all of the interns together in person. Obviously, that's a great idea, and I think it makes a ton of sense. But there are, again, those small ways you can do it along the way. Another great idea we've heard and is bringing in the speakers, almost like TED Talks. So let's have 5 of our employees do a TED-like session on given topics and let the interns ask questions when they're done, or bringing in outsiders to talk. Then creating that authentic engagement that aligns to your company as opposed to feeling forced. I think I made it through all the questions. The benefit of being from Jersey is I talk fast. Michelle, were there any other questions in the chat that I missed, or anything else I missed that you want to hit on?
I do believe that I answered them all, or as I was reading them, you were talking about the same topic, but if there are any more questions, definitely happy to field them.
And while we're waiting for any other questions, Michelle, anything else I asked or missed?
You got it all. It's a lot. It's a new world, and it's, we have to deal with it. But I do think that there are a lot of really great ways that we can work with students and support them and still, offer them a meaningful experience in this world. So Claudia, we may have missed the answer to Claudia's question.
While we're waiting, I mean, look, we're happy to do whatever we can to help. We are, as I said at the beginning, mission-based, mission-driven organization. We will do whatever we can. We're doing things with companies right now where we've taken the Parker Dewey micro internship platform and created company-specific versions of it, where a company can use it exclusively for its managers and its interns to, again, develop and design the project-based work. We're working with companies and helping them unpack or unbundle their internship or early career experience job descriptions into project-based work. We're happy to do that. We're working with one company in particular I called with earlier today, where unfortunately they needed to cancel their summer internship program. The vast majority of their interns were going to be in the laboratory environment. One of the things we're doing with them is creating a way for their managers on the business side to still engage those interns on business-based projects as they come up throughout the summer. So to the extent you have questions or need help with any of this, we're happy to do whatever we can to be supportive. Again, as Michelle said, this is not a perfect situation by any stretch, but we're doing everything we can to optimize. I see Claudia's question came through. Does Parker Dewey become the recruiter for positions, or is it a platform that each school implements for its own employers or students? The truth is, it really depends. So in the most simplistic way of thinking about it, Parker Dewey is a platform. On one side are college students who self-select and opt in, and students can do that whether or not they are attending one of our 400 plus partner schools. And on the other side, again, companies post their projects, their micro internships, and it can be HR driven, or as I alluded to before, it could be an individual manager in marketing or sales or finance or any other department. In that case, again, Parker Dewey has this network of college students who apply for the projects. The companies select who they want, and that's it. And by the way, for the duration of that micro internship, that student is a contractor of Parker Dewey. So Parker Dewey is actually structured as a consulting firm. What that means for the companies is no W-2s, no 1099s, none of that stuff. Now, you can interact with the student as much or as little as you want, but the student is on our books. What's also important is, should that turn into an internship or full-time role or anything else, there's no conversion or temp to perm fee. We're not a staffing firm, and we've never been one. This is nothing different because of COVID. We have always had that rule, and by the way, we've guaranteed we will never charge a temp to perm fee. We want this to turn into an opportunity for students and companies to discover one another. So in those cases, again, we're simply in the middle, and it's a totally open platform. We have done things with specific schools where they are working very, very closely with their employer population or their alumni population to create projects for their students. So Purdue's College of Liberal Arts has a phenomenal program where they're reaching out to their employer partners and they're saying, it's great that you support Purdue and come to campus. Here's another way to engage. Post micro internships for Purdue students. And by the way, if you do that, it's going to support your campus recruiting. It's going to provide the immediate support for your managers. But what we're also going to do is provide you with branding and highlight your company in our materials for the students, again, complementing your campus recruiting. And there's no additional cost to the company other than the cost of their micro internships. Colby College is another example where they're reaching out, again, specifically to alumni who may not be in HR, but who have these project needs. So again, someone in strategy that needs help with a competitive analysis can post that project and pick a Colby student. It's a great way for them to get the work done, but also to support the students at their alma mater. We got a question about foreign exchange students. Micro internships do fit under OPT. The US government has approved gig-based work, if you will, under OPT. However, it is 100% up to the school to approve the student. And again, it's up to the company to decide if they have interest in an international student for the project. We have had a number of companies do that, especially as they're thinking about recruiting for overseas positions. So do we have an office in London we want to recruit for? If we could find a UK student who's studying abroad in the US, again, great opportunity to build that relationship. Michelle, I think I hit all of the questions. Anything I missed or anything I should have added that I didn't think about that you want to add?
You got it. Just one more thing that I just found out actually is that our student network has grown by more than 50% just in the past month. So there are a lot of students out there feeling the pain from COVID, feeling displaced, and looking for opportunities to work with you remotely.
So again, if you have any of these projects right now, there's no need to wait. Or if your managers are asking, when are these interns going to start? Again, no need to wait. There are literally millions of highly motivated college students who are happy to help. And if there's anything else we can do, again, we'll share the slides afterwards with some of these links. If there's anything else we can do to be helpful along the way, please, please, please let us know. We're unfortunately all facing this challenging situation. And what's been great is I think all of us are trying to do everything we can to be supportive. So really appreciate everyone joining. Please stay safe. And again, don't be bashful. Reach out along the way if there's ways we can be helpful or answer any questions. With that, this concludes the webinar. And thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your, I think it's Thursday. Take care.